One of, I think, the big arguments at the next general election is going to be about redistribution. And I think Labour, if they played their cards right, could really, really take the hammer to the Tories on this. Because we all know for years there is, and have been told by the Tories themselves, that there is a lot of wealth in this country. They love to say how wealthy the UK is. But all this wealth is concentrated at the top in a very small pocket of people's hands. And the thing is, this money is desperately needed to help run things like the NHS, build much needed infrastructure. We could invest it into sort of new business areas, all kinds of stuff we could do with that money. And walking into what appears to be, because we don't know fully yet, but I highly suspect we are going to get austerity 2.0. Not a lot of people are going to be very happy about this. And I think it is going to reignite the whole question of, you constantly tell us that we've this really wealthy country, we're up on there on the chart of how wealthy a country we are, but we don't see this wealth. There is the reality on paper, and then there's the mass, very much lived reality of everyone else in the UK. So it's no surprise at all that I think wealth taxes could become a very key point battleground, certainly leading up to the next general election, even at the general election itself. Will this be it? I think it will. I absolutely think it will. And if you are on the left, bear in mind, this is something that we can push for, because even centrists would agree with us, because as I said before, if we are to sort of win a general election, we need at least 20% of those centrists, or 20 to 15% of those centrists on our side. We can get those centrists on our side by saying, look, there's this massive concentration of wealth. It doesn't move. It just sits there, and we can take it and we can put it into the NHS, into infrastructure. There's all sorts of stuff we could do with that money. And it's just now we've got to start making that case and the justification for why we have to have these wealth taxes. And this is one such argument that we're going to go through today. So before we go into that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So over we go to The Guardian today with their coverage on this. The title of Wealth Taxes Could Raise £37 billion for the UK Public Services, campaigners say. Rishi Sunak's new government could raise up to £37 billion to help pay for public services and energy bill support schemes if it introduced a string of wealth taxes, according to the tax equality campaigners. Tax Justice UK called on the government to introduce 5 tax reforms targeting the very wealthy, who the campaign group have said have done really well financially during the coronavirus crisis and national lockdowns, rather than to seek to save money with further cuts to public services. Tax is about political choices. And at a time when most people are being hit hard by the cost of living crisis, it would be wrong to cut public services further, said Tom Peters, the Tax Justice UK's head for advocacy. And I think he's right. People are not going to stand when they see how much Rishi Sunak is going to have to cut public services. And cut public services he will do, because public services have already been cut to the bone because of the Conservatives' previous austerity. And austerity never ended, despite Theresa May saying that Grenfell is the end of austerity. If you remember, Grenfell was meant to be the end of austerity. It certainly wasn't. They've only really sort of continued austerity, but they just haven't sort of called it austerity. And we've talked about the many problems that cutting public services has caused in the UK. Well, for the past over 13 years now. But anyway, back to it. The wealthy have done really well financially in the last few years, and the Chancellor should protect public spending by taxing wealth properly. The campaign group, which is calling for a fairer tax system that actively redistributes wealth to tackle inequality, suggests five key wealth tax reforms that say it could bring in an additional £37 billion into tax income, it said, such as equalising capital gains tax with income tax could raise up to £14 billion a year. At present, many well paid people collect their salaries via a sole trader or business partnership companies. They pay capital gains tax at a rate of 20% rather than income tax, which is higher at 45% for earnings over £115,000. Capital gains tax also applies to income from selling second homes or stocks and shares. Campaigners say that this would simplify the tax system and treat all forms of income in the same way. There is no obvious reason why someone going to work should pay more taxes on their wages than someone selling their second home, for example. Applying national insurance to investment income could raise over £8.6 billion. Closing loopholes on inheritance tax could raise £1.4 billion. Scrapping the non-dom regime and taxing their offshore income could generate £3.2 billion. And introducing a 1% tax on the super rich people's assets over £10 million could raise an additional £10 billion. So when Rishi Sunak comes out in the next couple of days and says that, oh, we have to cut taxes, we have to, oh, well, we have to raise taxes on certainly the poor because that's who it's going to be raised on. And, we have to cut public services. Bear in mind, there are other options. And remember, all these cuts, all these taxes always are a political choice. So don't believe the hype when Rishi Sunak says, oh, we have to do this. Just because you have to doesn't mean that there are other options that he could do, like the ones we've just been through there. And that would raise a lot of money in a time where the public services desperately need it. But back to it. Tax for Justice have said that a small wealth tax applied to those at the very top, I mean, it is very small, it's only like 1%, could raise nearly 10 billion and would help to rectify some of the issues with our existing wealth taxes, which are often avoided by the very richest. The UK Wealth Tax Commission last year recommended that a one-off 1% wealth tax on households with more than £1 million, perhaps even payable in instalments over 5 years, would generate £260 billion. Like, I generally do not kid you when I was at the start was saying, look, all this wealth is concentrated at the very much top and almost doesn't move. That's why you need to tax rich people, because they sit on their money. It's far, far more better being pumped back into the economy where the money is moving. And unfortunately, we've got a problem where essentially the money just stays at the top and moves very, very little, if at all. It is more than enough to cover a year's funding of the NHS and social care spending. And there's a justification for it. I mean, just that alone, a one-off 1% wealth tax could more than cover a year's spending on the NHS and social care spending. Just why aren't we doing it? Arun Avani, the assistant professor at the University of Warwick Economics Department and the member of the Wealth Tax Commission, said, "We think there are at least 22,000 people with wealth above £10 million in the UK. So you might want to start with them or even further up. If you start there, it would only be at the top 0.05% of the population." So you can see, I think wealth taxes could become a thing. I think this could very, very much politically become a thing because the Conservatives are going to fight against this type of thing tooth and nail. And all Labour have to do is, well, look, if we do this like one off wealth tax, That's like a year's worth of pay for the NHS and social care in one. Why would you not do it? And it would benefit public services massively. And the thing is, polling wise, this would sell very well, even with conservatives, because they all say, no matter who, when you poll them on this, do you want good public services? They all say yes. Do you accept that you would have to pay higher taxes or more money for public services? They all say yes. This is an absolute open goal for Labour, and I really, really do hope that they take to it. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.